All right, Coffee with Gaz here with Idalia, Salsamendi.
Luis, where's the coffee?
That's okay. That's
El
great question.
cafecito from la ventanita.
It's
Luis.
after we're getting so close to 5 that
Okay, got it.
I'm always dealing with when is it too late for coffee, too early for wine. This is definitely too late for coffee, and I'm into the wine mode.
I'm into wine with gas.
We could do that too.
Yeah.
We could do it too. We could do a little. I've actually enjoyed that as well.
Yeah.
The conversations would be a little more,
Enticing.
a little more enticing, right? But it was just pretty cool. I'm so happy that we reconnected.
Likewise.
You're here for a short period of time, so the fact that you stopped by, I really appreciate that.
Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. There's something that I wanted to talk about because before we started getting into social,
Yeah.
and I openly admit that prior to us getting in this as far as a vertical for our company, didn't understand it, didn't pay attention to it. Looking from the outside in, I never really understood it point blank.
Yeah.
And you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
I would say out of the people I know, one of the first ones. But correct me, you were actually into blogging, or you were a blogger before you became a
Luis,
brand
no one
strategist?
knows that. Yeah. So so I had a blog right when it started. It was called Vicarious LA because I had moved from Miami to Los Angeles. But while I did that, the whole point of that blog was I worked at Ford Models, a modeling agency. So I was able to release photos before it had been, put into any publications. And this is when bloggers were starting to make money. So we didn't actually use the word influencers yet. It was just bloggers. And then when I switched agencies from Ford to Next, that's when I got involved on the talent board. And by talent, it was just an overall, if you were a singer, an actor,
Okay.
a blogger.
Right.
But that was the OG term, a blogger.
So you are the OG.
I'm one of the professionally, I'm one of, I think, top 5 in the United States that started representing bloggers at the start.
So back then when you were blogging, a lot of it had to do with just connecting, I guess it was more of a backing into advertising or marketing products, right?
Yeah.
But it was also marketing yourself as well, right? As far as the product knowledge.
Well, when it came to myself, it was more of a journal that I called a blog. I mean, even now my website, I'm sure your website as well, every website for SEO has to have a journal or a blog, right? To start driving more traffic towards it. So my website was a blog, but it was more of a journal. It was an inspiration also with fashion. It was showing what I was doing. I never monetized off of that. That was just a labor of love. And then I sort of fell into the business of blogging on the back end, how to represent talent, how to represent bloggers.
Right.
Because that was the natural progression of the way the industry was going. I had been doing models for a couple of years, and I knew, instinctually, that bloggers were the next thing. So I jumped when it was just starting. I took that leap of faith.
You got uncomfortable very early on.
I have realized the older that I grow, if something makes me uncomfortable, it's a sure sign that I have to dive in and do it.
Well, you did it just from even relocating, right? Early on, young, moving across the country, big city.
Yeah.
And I say that, and I admire you for that because
you.
I'm born and raised here, South Florida.
Yeah.
Haven't left. I've been to places you don't want to know, the small towns, right? But you're doing the big city, so just you getting uncomfortable, that's another step.
Yeah.
Do you see the blogging also kind of help build that resume right early on? Kind of more of a resume play?
I think it is a resume play when I look at the overall scheme of my career, because out of everybody that I know, and this isn't me being narcissistic or an ego push, but I'm the only person that I know in this industry that has represented kids, that has represented female models, male models, bloggers, singers, actors, influencers, Instagrammers, TikTokers now. So when we look at the grand scheme of marketing and digital marketing, right? So, or even advertising for that matter, that blogging kind of shows how OG I am, that
Right.
I can use the word blogger and have the word blogging in my resume as a professional representing bloggers, not me as a blogger myself.
I like it as street cred.
Yeah,
That's the
totally.
the term I'm throwing
It's
out
kind
there.
of we were talking about it earlier, Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. Imagine 20 years from now, you're one of the first people to be like, oh yeah, when crypto came out, I got into it.
Right.
That's OG. That's okay,
No, I mean,
you kind of got it.
It has that. That's the entrepreneurial spirit, right? It's the vision and but how did it kind of and walk me through it because again now if you can see in the office stuff like that, we're all in on this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm super curious. I enjoy it. I like it. I believe in it. Attention is a currency and a vertical for our company.
Totally.
And I totally believe in it.
Yeah.
How did it turn from kind of the resume play or the notoriety and how do you start to monetize on it? That's kind of like the biggest thing I'm curious about.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think at the end of the day, when we're looking at marketing in general, right? So like, let's look at a standpoint. It doesn't matter what company you're into insurance. I wouldn't be surprised 3 or 4 years from now, and maybe that's even too late if you start using an influencer to help, I guess, monetize on Jag and Jag.
Right.
When you start looking at the industry as a whole, right? So you need to understand that this started from models. When you have a model, you have to book a model on a day rate. You have to hire the photographer. You have to hire the studio. You have to hire a director, a producer. I mean, you have a team right here. So you know that it's just not a one-man show. Imagine when you're doing like a Manolo Blahnik campaign, right? Just for example. When you start looking at that overhead cost and what that means versus just paying one influencer, maybe a lot of money, but you're eliminating all this other overhead that you used to have. That was the selling point.
Right.
And more times than not, when you hire an influencer, you have their resume online. It's their Instagram. It's their YouTube. That's their currency. That's their resume. So you're creating all these little mini campaigns the same way that you do all these coffee sessions. These are all little mini coffee sessions that when you look back, helps build your empire.
Sure. And that but now that brand awareness.
Yeah.
But before that, influencer itself, right?
Yes.
What defines an influencer?
Yeah.
Because that's like
that
the biggest
is like the question I always get asked, and I cringe sometimes when people are like, "I'm an influencer." I'm like, "Oh God," like
I need to know this because I've been, I tend to joke around a lot about it. So
yeah, so do I, and I have been in it from the start. So I hear you. I think what we perceive an influencer to be is someone that is on social media and tries to make a living off of it. Okay, that's like the Reader's Digest version. What I do with my company, Idalia Inc., is no matter if I'm working with a brand with strategy or influencer with strategy, is okay, what's the bigger picture, right? Because you can sell the latest Prada bag, but if you're not using your platform to do good,
right,
or to kind of just extend yourself in ways that you've never had, then you're not an influencer. You're just selling a fucking product. Oops, am I allowed to curse?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
It's okay. This is YouTube.
Okay, great. Thanks, YouTube. So you're just selling a product. To what end are you going to keep selling a product? I mean, to what end are you going to keep whoring yourself out? Let's just be honest.
Right. At some point, you're capped.
Your time's up. So an influencer for me is someone that has a greater influence. What does the word influence mean? Well, it means being the person that causes another person to take action.
Okay.
What does that mean? Maybe you don't drink out of plastic water bottles. Maybe you buy a wallet that you liked because you saw it on Instagram. There's different levels of influence. And I think that the reason people cringe at the word influencer, and myself included, is that we always narrow it down to people just posing on the side of Bird Road, thinking that they're famous,
right,
posing.
Well, and I think that comes from, I think there's and I hate to say this, like a stigma of
Totally.
it. Like it's almost like a low level way
to
cop out,
yeah,
or a way to kind of make, someone can hate on you. I use the word hating as a different word, but everyone says, oh, you think you're an influencer. I just think, and going back to the stigma of it, and so many people use social media, I think, in the wrong way. They make it about themselves per se.
Bingo.
Right? So it's about them. And then besides that, 90% or whatever percentage of the people just use it to look what other people are doing, right?
Yeah.
They're not actually getting involved. So for those who actually do it to promote their business, to promote themselves, to get uncomfortable, it's kind of like a cheap shot, right? I think most people wish they had the courage to do so,
yeah,
or to even get uncomfortable, but they don't do it.
We were talking about this at dinner the other night of like, the first thing I told you when I saw you, I'm like, dude, like, you're kicking ass. Like, congrats on everything that's going on. Because I strategize for brands, and I tell people you need to get out there, push the glass ceiling,
right,
get out of your comfort zone. And it's very, very difficult. And in my experience, it's a little more difficult for males, right? Because the stereotype, when you think influencer, when you think social media, you think of a female.
Yeah.
So like, kudos to you for understanding that.
Thank you.
And going back to what you said is, well, you have to know your why. And when I came into your office, the first thing I saw was your mission statement clearly put on a huge board. I immediately know what your why is. I immediately know why I'm here. I immediately know why you're doing what you do. So all the fun things that you do on social media, guess what? That's just a cherry on the cake, because you've built the cake, right? You've already built the foundation to your empire. Now, if you want to have pretty, if you want to paint the wall, or if you want to put like pretty things all around, that's fine. But you know what your foundation is. And I think that's what's missing with a lot of influencers. I think that's what's missing with a lot of brands is, what's your why?
So, and how does that work in terms of connecting that, right? Because you have because you both work with on the brand strategy side and then also on the influencer side as well.
Yep.
So how do you kind of balance connecting the both? Like, do those things have to be aligned?
Totally.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do you, I mean, because that becomes, and I think, again, so many things you could control. I think it's easier from an influencer standpoint. And I'm not calling myself an influencer. I'm just saying
I'm getting your autograph later.
Okay, well, that's we'll take a selfie. A selfie is the signature, right? That's our signature. But I just think as far as, and empathize with you being in the situation because personally, right, you're in control of how you act, what you do, how you do it.
Yeah.
So many times there's this like lack of awareness if your brand's good or not and who you are. And those decisions are being made by X amount of people, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of gets clunky. So I always felt it would be easier to kind of from the influencer side because it's them. It's completely transparent.
I think when it comes to both brands and influencers, you have to have like that form of self-awareness, and you need to be very clear on who you are, and you have to have a very good team behind you. And when I see a lot of influencers not get to where they want to be, it's either because they may not have the team behind them that they need to. They may be not listening to the team, right? You know very well someone can come into your office and say, this is what needs to be done. But if you're not getting that advice, then you're not progressing.
Taking action.
And that requires a form of selflessness. You really have to put down your ego. I mean, if you've been an influencer for 7 years, if you've been a Fortune 500 company that I work with that has been around for 50, 60 years, and, Idalia comes in and say, hey, we got to change things up and quickly, you got to check the ego at the door. So, and I need to check the ego at the door, right? Because not everything I'm going to say is perfect.
Right.
This is a social experiment at the end of the day, and I get that very clear.
That's consistent. It's always evolving as well.
It's always evolving. I mean, I remember last year during the pandemic when everything shut, when TikTok just blew up in the United States, it was like, oh, crap. Now I need to like really dig into what was TikTok. Well, it used to be Musical.ly. Who is it owned by? What's the progression of it? And all these companies were calling me saying, how do we use it? What's going on? So it's always a progression. It's always evolving. I'm not the genie with like the magical answers. I make a living of finding out the answers, condensing it, making it digestible, and giving it to you so that you can succeed.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so going back to that, how do you quantify what is a successful? Because obviously you can kind of back into somebody who sells a product, pushes a product.
Yeah.
But if someone wanted to start using it and actually getting uncomfortable, because I know there's some people that want to do that and start to, again, being an influencer is a career, right?
Yes.
Try to monetize on it.
Yeah.
What's the first thing you think they should do?
Find their why. Why are you doing it? Because if you're doing it to get free crap, then you're in it for the wrong reasons. So why are you doing it?
And well, that's the first point. The second thing is, do you think a lot has to do with, besides knowing your why, do you think engagement plays a big part of it?
You have to be engaged. This is the analogy I put with Instagram. When people put up a photo and they're like, well, I didn't get as many likes as I want, and what's going on? Or let's say people do start liking your photos and you're not engaging back with your audience. I always say that it's like someone giving you a hug and you just staying there like this. You have to engage back. If someone's giving you a hug, you kind of got to give them a hug back. Show them love back. What does that mean? Maybe comment back to what they said. If they have asked a question, answer it. Yeah. And like obviously you're like, well, no shit, Sherlock, but a lot of people don't understand that. Go to their page and start liking their photos. Start creating some sort of community with them so that they feel seen and they feel heard. Especially with the pandemic, social media is like how we kept up with everything and with everybody.
For almost everybody, yeah.
So if you're just, and you said in the beginning of the conversation, if you're just sitting on your phone, just trolling around, that's fine. I mean, like those are what I call consumers, like you can consume out of that, like those are my clients. But if you're not engaging, you're really not using social media to its max. And I'm a firm believer when Instagram started that it was to connect people. You can make a nice living out of it. Like you could put a roof above your head over it, but never negate the fact that it started to create a community. If you're not creating community, i.e. engagement, then you got to rethink the whole process of what social media means to you.
I could tell you from a personal standpoint, I've connected with so many people and I made actual relationships by doing it in that exact way. And it's funny, nobody in the 5-mile radius where I live, it's been, because I guess it just opened so many doors, right? There's no walls anymore. I mean, it's been interesting how that being authentic, the engagement side of it. I'm a big fan of the videos. I just feel like videos give you that extra type of connectivity. It breaks
sure.
through that barrier almost because pictures could be filtered,
Yes.
right? We've all been there. We've taken we take a bunch of photos to see what we're going to put, which is
Guilty.
I'm kind of guilty. Lisa's guilty. But the video itself, I just feel like that's kind of like that next level of being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That really connects, and it's been great. I can testify like when people come in the office,
Yep.
And now when we're pitching, clients or we're meeting people, they always feel that instant connection, and that's a win.
Well,
for
like
us.
if they already know you.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you're selling insurance. I sell my strategy. I also sell online business courses. If you can see me talking about business, that's going to help me sell a product more than just like a pretty picture of me, holding a product, right? So it doesn't matter what you do or what influencer or what brand or whatever you do in life. Video is important. And when the other night I came home, like, damn, I need to do more videos. Like, look, like you were kind of like egging me on to do more videos, and I'm like, crap.
It's a little bit harder, but I think it's the most impactful thing you can do.
Yeah, that's where Instagram stories. I always ease people up with Instagram stories, like let them in. I always say it's like a BTS. It's a behind the scenes look at your life.
Yeah.
I think that your Instagram, you can, if you want to make it a little bit nicer, or if you want to make it like your glossy magazine, knock yourself out. Your Instagram story should be just a little bit more freeing, a little bit more fun. And I think that's a way to ease up with people that don't really get video. Just start with Instagram stories.
Yeah, because in 24 hours it disappears, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to be so
rigid
and so curated in how you're going to do it and go from there.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to ask you,
Yeah.
you have a master class.
Yes.
I need to know how that happened.
Oh, okay. I think you may think that I have it on masterclass.com.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, I just have an influencer masterclass, but thank you for thinking that.
Okay.
The goal is
I
getting
Googled
there.
master class and that's what popped up.
Yeah. The goal is getting there. The goal is getting there. No, but it is the first ever influencer masterclass, period. So if you're an influencer wanting to understand the business, that's the masterclass that you would go to. And it's been written up by WWD in the Daily Front Row. It's gotten really good press. So
On the influencer side, I mean, how many people are like, because you kind of, how do you take it to the next level, right? Because you got this going back to like people wanting to be influencers, monetizing on it.
Yeah.
Like when you get somebody, people come to you and say, look, I have X amount of followers.
Yeah.
Is that the first type of resume thing you filter through? Because the follower thing is also could be deceiving.
Gosh, that's a hard question. Yes, but that shouldn't be the correct answer. For me, it is, just because my roster is so small, and it does tend to be macro influencers, people that are established, and I'm just really like blowing up their career. So they've already built their foundation. I'm turning that into the empire, right? That's where I come in. They've kind of laid the groundwork. I like starting with people that have already laid the groundwork, because I like people that do the work, right? Like, I'm not going to put in the work for you if you're not going to work yourself.
Right.
So the only way that I can describe it without sounding like a raging asshole is, I represent like Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. So if you are on a small commercial in, regional commercial, I may not be the person for you.
Right.
Right.
Which is fine. I mean,
but that's where my courses come in.
Right.
So, and that was a common question, because people are like, dude, your roster's the best of the best. What about people that haven't gotten there? And that's what this industry was missing. Because of course you can help people that have already made it. Like, that can seem easy from the outside, but how do you help people start from the ground up? And that's where those courses come in. That's where my podcast comes in. My podcast is free. My journal is free. So you're getting free information for people that may not have access to a big city, big agents.
I love that. Just from the value play too,
Yeah.
just giving it away, giving that
information. Because when we look at micro influencers, anywhere between 10,000 to even 100,000, that's like that's the majority of the influencers that are out there. If they've never spoken to an agent or a manager that knows it, if they don't know the rules of the game, how is this industry going to proceed? And this industry is all shush hush. Like, everybody's just hoarding information. And I'm like, fuck that shit. Stop hoarding it. We need to make this an even playing field, because if not, guess what?
it's going to flip.
It's going to flip. So now we're going to be the minority, and because we're the one with the knowledge, but other people are playing the game. You know what I'm saying? So that's where that free information comes in. And that's why I find it so, so invaluable that people have to listen to that. And then the next step is my courses. So if you have a little bit of money, take a course. And then when you're ready for like the big leagues, that's where you get that one-on-one with me.
Now, let me ask you, what would average, let's just say you're an an influencer in general.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
What are we talking about, like, income-wise? Like, what would someone going to make as an income-wise? Like, what, average, medium?
Millions.
Really?
Yeah, I make people millions.
Really?
Yeah, totally.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Because at that point, that's also where I come in when we strategize bigger picture. So I don't use the word influencer, I use the word entrepreneurs. Also remember, influencers are small businesses, and most influencers are women. So I'm a really firm believer that if a woman is going to take, leave her 9 to 5 and like really try to make a living off of blogging or influencing, like that takes balls. At the end of the day,
it's
a small business.
It's vulnerability as well. I mean, it's just a matter of like, I think that's the most powerful thing.
Totally.
And the biggest kind of leap into the next level is being completely vulnerable,
Yeah.
sharing your life. And I think, but which is a catch-22 because that authenticity is what drives people to you, right?
Totally.
And you could tell that people that don't you can't do it every day consistently if you fake it. It's exhausting.
Well, and people are going to catch on. So that's where, when we look at the Kardashians, they've done a really good job because they led us into their real lives, right? So at some point it has to be scripted after 15 seasons, sure. But it's
so many things you can talk about.
It's the real deal. And Instagram and social media can play a part in that as well. But when you start building those things, you start thinking about, okay, well, are they going to open up their own line? Okay, well, what charity are they aligning themselves with? Okay, well, what's the next step? And it's really incredible helping those influencers expand their careers in ways they'd never thought before. One of my girls, Caitlin, during COVID, she was doing tie-dye in like her backyard in New Jersey and wearing tie-dye sets. And people were just going crazy like, oh, I want to buy it. So I said, Caitlin, why don't you put it up for sale? Do like 100 tie-dyes at home, sit with your boyfriend. Let's put it up for sale and let's put 100% of the proceeds to the World Health Organization. This was in March of last year.
Yeah.
She said, great. Sold out in 10 minutes. So I said, okay, well, let's do another drop. So we did another drop. We did that for about a month. And then we started making more. And then that percentage obviously went low because we're like, okay, I think we could build a business out of this. And to this day, that has now turned into a full-blown clothing line within a year. We're still giving back to various charities because obviously as different things arise, like we've given to the AACP, we've given money towards Black Lives Matter. So, we really keep our finger on the pulse of where does that money need to be allocated. And to be able to do that for somebody and to sit there and strategize saying, hey, you're just not a girl taking a photo for Instagram. We're really like doing things, number one, on a monetary level to help people in need.
Right.
And number two, you're building a career, you're building a business from it. And that for me, like, I get so passionate about that. And that's what I try to do with everybody that I work with. It's like, you're just not a pretty picture. You're just not a cool video. What's in there? What's your passion? How can we go forward? How can we align with a charity? How can we expand your voice? That for me is what an influencer is. And it, like, this conversation's going back full circle. Like, and that's how you build. And I think that's where the stigma needs to be ridden of, like, if you're going to call yourself an influencer, you better be fucking sure you're putting, like, your balls to the wall and influencing, not just selling a product.
Right. It's exciting to see what you're doing. Obviously, us getting into it and watching from afar and seeing you, I have almost respect for you.
Thank you.
I'm pumped up. It pumps me up to kind of talk to you. We got to start capitalizing and monetizing on this, man. I mean, we got to take it to the next level. I might do like a hat or something tomorrow. But I mean, I'm excited to see, like, just to talk to you, to feed off your energy, to see what you're doing, and kind of learning from you. So kudos to you, and I appreciate you doing this.
Well, thanks for teaching me too. I mean, your social media, you've taken an insurance company, and I told you this before, when I give my courses and when I give my, like, I do free online classes too, I'm like, you guys, it doesn't matter what business you're in, like, you could be selling insurance. And I always think of like Luis Gazitua and Jack.
It's true.
I'm like, because people really are like, well, I can't use social media, that's not for my business. I'm like, dude, if my friend can do it for insurance in Miami, like, pretty sure you can do it for your, like, florist shop, It's like the same respect and the same love goes back to you because you've been able to really put your finger on the pulse of what's happening right now, what's going to be happening in the future, and start making it happen now.
Right.
And kind of putting your ego aside and your pride aside, right? Like, for someone...
I left that outside a while ago.
And what are the benefits of that? Success.
Yep.
That's what happens when you check the ego at the door, when you check the pride, when you work from a place of vulnerability, when you work from a place of wanting to genuinely do better no matter the cost, that's success. Like your trajectory has to go up. Like it's physics.
I mean, we're there. I love it. I appreciate it, Idalia. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me, Luis.
Thank you.
Wine with gas.
Wine. Do a little, we'll do Spanish wine.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.